How's it going, friends? And thank you so much for tuning in to this week's motivational video. My name is Philip, and this is another episode in my motivational series called How to Fly with a Clipped Wing. And in today's episode, I'm going to be spending a little bit of time recapping on what we've been talking about in previous videos up till this point. And then after that, I'm going to do something a little different for now and talk about what's been going on with my flight training. I was thinking an episode about this would be a nice brief departure from sort of the more typical motivational material that I've been covering up until now, yet it'll still be motivational in nature and will give anybody watching this whole series a little bit of a different taste of who I really am and what else characterizes my life other than my paralysis and being an amputee. And then in the next video, we'll get back into the main motivational material and elaborate more on how passion has helped guide me out of the rough rock bottom times after my injury. And if you've been watching these videos, you've got an idea about what kinds of messages I've been trying to put out there each week. But for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, my goal has been fairly simple in scope, and that goal has pretty much just been to share the experiences that I've had going through life after my spinal cord injury and as an amputee. My goal has been to share these experiences and the lessons that I've been learning about life with you, but more specifically to do so in a way that helps audiences reflect on what's important in their own lives and to reflect on their own capabilities and the power of their own mind to overcome different obstacles that life puts in front of really all of us at one point or another. That system that's helped me get through all the anger, the aggression, the drug use, the depression, the post-traumatic stress, and everything else, I've found is made up of 5 essential elements. And these 5 elements, or what I call the 5 Ps, are 5 different things that I found that I was in control of whenever I needed to give it my all, or to do everything that I could to solve a problem. And of course, there are things, many more things, that we are not in control of, but the 5 Ps are what have helped me maximize what I am able to do in order to adapt to life and to get myself through the challenges that each new day brings. The first of these 5 elements is patience. I've had to constantly remind myself to be more patient with myself and to afford myself as much time as I need to do something, especially as someone with paralysis and as an amputee, because even the things that should take a few seconds to do now often take minutes or hours to do. With a more patient mind, I can move into the second piece of this system, perspective. As I've needed to relearn things, I've needed to make sure to focus on what I'm doing in the present moment and maintain a healthy perspective on what I've gotten myself through in the grand scheme of things rather than focusing on the negative. This point brings me to the third element, and that is to have a positive mindset. It's super important to stay positive and affirmative in what you envision yourself needing to do. And so after having patience, maintaining a healthy perspective, and staying positive, you've got to be willing to persevere and to keep going when times have really gotten tough. Without perseverance and the desire to endure, then these other efforts will have really all been for nothing, and there's the possibility for you to feel like you've failed, when in reality you would have succeeded if you just held on a little bit longer. The fifth and the final piece to this 5P system is to have things in life that you are passionate about. It's important to have these things that are the reasons why you choose to do the things that you do. You've got to have things that help you define who you are to you. And with these 5 elements, it's possible to get yourself through anything. And it was this very system that helped me change my life around for the good forever. And one of the things that this system helped me achieve was my lifelong desire to become a licensed aircraft pilot, to be able to fly airplanes. And that's what I'd like to spend the rest of this video talking about, because there's been some really exciting stuff that's been going on with the flying that I've been doing lately. I'm one of the very, very few full-arm amputee licensed aircraft pilots in the country, which has brought on many unique and super interesting challenges along the way that I think a lot of other people can benefit from hearing about. If they see this guy who's one-armed and who's gone through life after hitting rock bottom, only to correct himself somehow and achieve a lifelong dream of flying, I think a lot of people would resonate positively and strongly with that story. And definitely, so far, that's the way it seems people have been taking it. After 3 long years of working as a financial analyst out of college and affording to attend flight school, I recently completed the first level of training for what's called the Private Pilot Certificate. And that's pretty much what people think of when they typically think of having a pilot's license. You know, you can fly pretty much wherever you want, take your friends up, and all of that. So that was really exciting to be able to complete. And it was actually during my final exam that my examiner thought that I was doing so well that he actually offered me a job to come and work for him at the flight school to teach students about flight and to help give them the ground-based knowledge that that's required for their licenses that they're trying to get, that just as I was. So I got offered a job to be a ground instructor during my final exam, which, wow, up till that point, I was really hoping that I was doing okay during the exam. So that definitely let me know that I was doing just fine. All of my hard work aligning myself with the patience, the perspective, the positivity, the perseverance, and my passion for flying airplanes was really paying off. After I successfully completed my license requirements, I got right to work studying for the exams that are a part of the certification process of becoming what's called an advanced flight instructor. And what being an advanced flight instructor means is that not only am I able to teach students going through flight school for their basic licenses, but that I can also teach commercial pilots. I can teach transport pilots, and I can teach recreational pilots their required flight knowledge for their training as well. Plus, I'm legally able to endorse these students to take their written exams for their different licenses. Another cool thing that an advanced ground instructor can do is teach these different types of knowledge to pilots who are already licensed, but who need their refresher courses every 24 months. So it was just this past Tuesday that I passed my exams that were required to become an advanced flight instructor. And since then, I've just been so freaking excited to start teaching flight knowledge. And for me, it's not just about having these abilities and privileges that I mentioned, but more so that a ground instructor has such an integral and pivotal role when it comes to inspiring students to be safer, to be more conscientious, to be more situationally aware while they fly. It's really during ground instruction that good habits in aeronautical decision making are made, and where bad habits can be identified and then broken or eroded. Plus, I'm really excited to be giving these classroom lectures to students who can see that I've been able to achieve these things despite my paralysis, and hopefully to give them some perspective on their own learning paths, to help them see that they're capable of completing their flight training successfully too, no matter what their challenges are. As long as they're patient with themselves, as long as they maintain that healthy perspective as they go through it all, as long as they stay positive, they keep persevering, and as long as they keep following their passion for flight, then they're going to be good to go. There have been some other really cool developments with my flight stuff lately as well. I started a couple different types of training to add on to my pilot's license, and the first of this kind is called an instrument rating. And essentially what the instrument rating does is it makes pilots a lot safer, and it trains pilots to fly much more precisely. Believe it or not, a license or a pilot with an instrument rating is able to take off from an airport, fly an entire flight, and then land at an airport safely while avoiding other traffic hazards and terrain hazards without even looking outside. And this is super useful for pilots who occasionally have to fly during times when the visibility is really low, like when flying through fog or clouds, or haze or things like that. So I started training for this instrument rating, and so far it's been teaching me a lot of great stuff that I'll continue to update you guys on as I go along. And the second piece of additional training that I've been going through is aerobatic flight training. And for those of you who don't know what that is, or if you've never seen a Red Bull air race on TV, or if you haven't been to an air show before, aerobatic flying is when you intentionally make the plane behave in ways that are not at all required for normal flight. And this involves making the plane do all kinds of interesting things that involve moving the plane completely around all three of its axes of movement. Whether that involves rolling the airplane, looping the airplane, spinning the airplane, stalling the airplane in all different kinds of ways, and lots of other potential unusual behaviors. I've wanted to fly aerobatics for a long, long time, ever since my dad took me to my first air show when I was probably about 10 years old or something like that. And I saw these pilots flipping their planes around and whipping them around. They made it look so damn fun and effortless. And so I think a reasonable question for the aerobatic pilot would be, if you're maneuvering the airplane in ways that aren't necessary for normal flight, then what's the point? And well, my response to that would be, first of all, the fact that these certain special aerobatic planes can do these things that the majority of other aircraft can't do, and that the structures of these aircraft can support the enormous stresses and forces imposed on them that other aircraft can't do, like supporting sometimes 5 to 9 times their own weight when going through tight banking turns or tight loops, is super intriguing to me. That humans are able to do that, and they're that awesome, then that ingenious to design and engineer that is just awesome. And I'd want to be a part of that. Also, the second part of my answer to that question is that aerobatic flight helps stimulate the mind to think faster and react faster than it otherwise would during normal flight operations. For anyone who's played a sport, it's kind of the same thing. Typically in sports, especially when you play in high school or college, during the off season, there's a decent amount of physically and mentally stressful training that you do, referred to as conditioning. Conditioning that you might do for a sport during this time, excuse me, could be, for example, practicing in the blistering summer sun with minimal water intake, and for time periods that greatly exceed the time period of an actual game for that sport. So you might train for this like 3 times a week for 2 hours a day, when you might need to actually play once per week for an hour while the actual season's going on. And the reasons that you put your body through all of this hell in the off season is so that when the time comes to play other teams, your mental and your physical abilities are so much stronger than the other team, and you know from experience that your limits are much greater than anything you're most likely going to see during the actual game. It gives you that extra leg up advantage. And that difference in mental and physical strength and confidence can be all of the difference between winning and losing when it comes to playing in those game situations. Especially when it comes down to performing in the final moments of the game. The final moments which can often decide the outcome of the entire thing. So this elevation of mental and physical capabilities through tough conditioning is exactly why I'm putting myself through aerobatic training. The training is much more demanding and much more rigorous on the body and the mind than normal flying conditions. To me, especially flying as an amputee, this elevation in capability is really, really important in order to keep me that much safer while flying normally. The challenges of flying aerobatics don't stop once you're ready to come back to the airport for a landing. In fact, the challenges remain all the way back down to the ground, all the way until the plane is turned off and is parked and sitting in place. The types of aerobatic planes that I use for my training are known as a decathlon or the super decathlon. And these planes don't have what most planes have that normally help pilots stabilize the plane when flying at very slow speeds, such as when coming in for a landing. The things that help pilots do that are called flaps, and they normally extend downward off of the trailing edge on the trailing side of the wing and allow a pilot to descend without increasing their airspeed. And that's a very, very helpful thing to be able to do when descending down to the runway. However, on aerobatic planes that I fly, there aren't any flaps at all. So in order to achieve the same effect of keeping the plane's airspeed low while descending, I've got to perform what's called a slip. A slip is essentially flying the plane somewhat sideways, like in this video here, sort of like if you've ever seen a race car drive sideways while they drift into a corner. And as you can see here, there's a lot more of the side of the plane that's exposed to the oncoming wind. So that air that's pressing on the side of the plane helps slow it down. To manage the plane's airspeed and descent rate while slipping is itself a challenge, especially when flying with one arm, and especially when needing to make adjustments to the slip if there are winds blowing from the other side, or from the side, or something like that. So yeah, in all phases of flight, whether it's the taking off, or during the flight, or when coming in for landing, aerobatic training has presented a new set of elevated challenges that I'm really excited about discovering and overcoming. I was really excited about sharing this stuff with you guys as something a little bit different than the previous motivational videos that I've been releasing about the other 5 Ps. I think that there's a lot that can still be taken away from this video from a motivational standpoint. That, you know, with the 5 Ps in your own life, you can achieve great things too, and can influence others around you to be happy and successful in their own lives in their own ways. If I can struggle over the years to learn to fly and can still complete my training despite the hazards and the extra work that was required for me to put in order to achieve things that I'm passionate about, then you can too. You can work through what you need to work through in order to get healthy and stay healthy. You can realize even the most seemingly far-fetched goals that to others may seem impossible, but for you, the one with the vision, it's just a matter of making sure that you remain patient, keep that healthy perspective along the way, staying positive, to keep persevering, and to use your passion as the torchlight that guides you through the darkness of the unknown. And with these tools at your disposal, you're capable of achieving anything that you want to achieve despite the challenges in life that would love nothing more than to keep you from achieving your goals. Or, in other words, with these tools at our disposal, we are all capable of flying despite our clipped wings. Please remember to share this video with others. Check out my website at www.howtoflywithaclippedwing.com for more motivational content, or to book me for a speaking event. And I'll see you in the next week's video.